everyone, this is Speaker Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you and a continued build up to James Gunn's upcoming Superman project within 2025. I thought it would be a good idea to reflect on all of the previous big cinematic outings of the greatest superhero character of all time. So in this video we will look at Superman 2, which was released on June the 19th, 1981. It is of course a sequel to the first film from 1978, which was the first cinematic outing of the character and captivated audiences with his cinematic scope, effects and serious approach to the greatest superhero ever. All of the great cast of actors, the iconic John Williams score, and of course the incomparable portrayal and performance of the immortal Christopher Reeve, who as Superman transcended the character to even greater heights in terms of popular and mainstream culture. And he of course returns for the sequel this time around alongside almost all of the cast from the first film, including Margot, Gene Hackman, Terence, Sarah Douglas and Ned Beatty. Now the second film was filmed alongside the original back-to-back by director Richard Donner, but due to ongoing tensions with producers Alexander and Ilya Salkin, Donner only managed to complete around 75% of the sequel. He was later replaced by unit director Richard Lester, who added and reconfigured certain sequences. Currently, you do have the option to watch either Lester's original theatrical version or Donner's amended recut of the sequel, and both are available within certain formats. But in terms of the sequel and the story itself, it revisits the early part of the first film where Superman's Kryptonian father Jor-El banishes 3 Kryptonian criminals to the Phantom Zone prison. These are Ursula, Non and their leader General Zod. Back on Earth, Jor-El's son Clark Kent / Superman continues his dual identity as the mild-mannered news reporter and also the world's protector. However, his continued closeness with fellow reporter Lois Lane is eventually revealed as he clumsily exposes himself to his true identity. Having taken Lois to his fortress of solitude and confessing his love for her, Superman relinquishes his superpowers in order to be with Lois as a normal human being. However, he comes to rue that decision badly as the 3 Kryptonians are inadvertently freed from the prison of the Phantom Zone, and with their powers revived, they travel to Earth with intentions to take over the planet. After realizing his mistake, Clark must find a way to regain his powers and take on the 3 Kryptonians and save the planet from the threat of their rule. Now, when we talk of any great movie sequel, what it has to do is to retain all of the elements that made the first film so special and elevate them to an even higher quality, adding a stronger and more compelling storyline, and then remain standalone as it is, separate from the first film, that you can completely watch it without having any knowledge of the previous installment. And Superman 2 achieves all of that criteria, so much so that it is superior to the first film, and when we think about it, it really is the greatest comic book movie sequel of all time, and perhaps the greatest movie sequel ever within movies. It truly is that great. Now, as mentioned, we still retain everything that was great about the first movie. So of course we have Christopher Reeve, imperious and untouchable as ever, both as Clark Kent and Superman. You just run out of superlatives at this point to describe the impacts that he made within this character. He is simply perfection in the role and the best ever live action Superman that we'll likely get. As is Margot Kidder's Lois Lane, once more the brusque, cynical, very risky and ballsy personality, and the chemistry between both Kidder and Christopher Reeve is once more fantastic. This features especially in one of the movie's funniest scenes when we see Lois jumping into the river to try and get Clark to reveal his Superman identity. Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor, once more charismatic as ever in the role, though this time he's really much more of a secondary comic relief as Lex aligns with the Kryptonians, at times both mocking and manipulating them, and this provides plenty of humour. Once more we have John Williams' musical score that stirs all of the emotions and heartstrings, and alongside Reeve's performance, you simply cannot dispute against it in terms of being the greatest ever of its kind. But where Superman 2 finally surpasses the original is the raising of the stakes. Previously we had, in all honesty, the lame plan of Lex Luthor's ambitions to acquire land property, But this time around, we have the more ominous threat of the three Kryptonians, all as powerful as Superman. So straight away, we have far more tension and escalation, action, more peril and jeopardy, hence making the story far more compelling. How exactly is Superman going to beat three Kryptonians who are each as powerful as he is? So that concept instantly commands your attention. And all of this is fronted by Terence Stamp's General Zod, a much more imposing villain, far more intelligent and articulate, yet still very ruthless and maniacal also. It's a truly great performance, one of the most memorable comic book screen villains ever, defined none more so than the classic line "Kneel before Zod," where we see in a great sequence where the Kryptonians take over the American White House and Zod makes his speech, making the president kneel down before him. And this is one of the many moments where the movie provides a far more substantial threat. And with the trio of villains, we get plenty of screen time, which provides a lot of danger, but also a lot of humour, with some absolutely hilarious moments as we see them get to grips with the initial planet called Houston, for which they later realise is planet Earth, and integrate with the various civilians, accompanied by the sexy femme fatale of Sarah Douglas's Ursula and a far more brutish Non. This is an absolutely fantastic combination of villains, and I think the movie balances their presence just right, making sure that they don't go too far into self-parody or slapstick, and this is a classic lesson in how to portray your antagonists of your movie just right. And the main hero doesn't get sidelined either. We of course develop further the romance between Superman and Lois, which leads him to surrendering his powers. Now some fans have taken issue with the fact that Superman would never ever do this, but what the story is trying to show is the humanity of the character, and he does something that is ill-advised and irresponsible when he's in love with someone. And this is something that I think everybody can understand, and this is what makes the character overall relatable. And this is a great example of how you can present your character with different scenarios and problems without deconstructing them. Something that the more recent Superman movies and comics could definitely learn from. And we do then mention the centerpiece action, an epic battle between Superman and the Kryptonians within the central metropolis. And yes, by today's standards, the effects don't look as good, but it's still terrific action and spectacle, providing a high level of excitement and drama than the first film did. Now yes, you will get Superman fans primarily from the DCEU and the Snyderverse, who will alert to the fact that we have the same city level destruction amongst civilians that what we saw with Man of Steel. And that movie was heavily criticised for it. Now the major difference here is that Superman is constantly saving civilians whilst fighting, which again adds to the tension and retains the integrity of the character, as does his later decision within the battle to actually surrender his position when he sees the destruction within the city and take the battle somewhere else to find a better way to defeat the villain. Once more retaining the true nature and integrity of the character, and this is again something that could be learned from in more recent iterations of Superman. Now despite the huge expectations following the first film, Superman 2 had no problems following its success, becoming a huge box office blockbuster, grossing over $216.9 million worldwide from a $54 million budget, coming in only second behind the Raiders of the Lost Ark in terms of the highest grossing film of 1981. And like the first film, Superman 2 drew almost universal praise for successfully mixing the humour and character journeys with the action, drama and spectacle. As mentioned before, Terence Stamp's General Zod has rightly been regarded amongst the most iconic screen villains, and his impact still lasts today within Superman iterations, as does Christopher Reeve, who maintained his impact as the definitive interpretation of the character, something else that still stands strong today. And Superman 2 continued the trends that was set previously by The Empire Strikes Back, in terms of the blockbuster movie sequel, very much setting the standard and trend of the movie franchise that would be followed right throughout the 1980s. And many years after its release, Superman 2 still stands tall alongside the first film as a truly classic movie interpretation of Superman. Amazingly and perhaps sadly, it remains the last truly great Superman film, as standards dropped severely following the third and fourth installments, which veered far too much into the slapstick and comedy, devoid of the serious gravitas that propelled the first two entries. But Superman 2 for me still remains the best Superman movie ever, containing all of the things that made the first film good, but just elevating them to an even higher level. And it proves to be the ultimate standard for a comic book movie sequel, and also a cinematic sequel in general. So there's my thoughts and feelings when looking back at Superman 2. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I will shortly be covering the following entries, Superman 3 and Superman 4 on the channel, so look out for that content in the future. But if you have any other further suggestions regarding any other movies, television series, or any other issues for the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover within the channel, then also let me know in the comments, and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit on the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.